It's been about 5 years since we brought home our very first backyard chickens. And in that time, I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. Things I wish someone had told me right from the start. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through everything I've learned about raising egg-laying hens the easy way. We'll cover breeds, feed, coops, runs, daily care, everything you need to know if you're just getting started or thinking about starting your own flock this year. I felt called to get chickens during the pandemic. We had never raised them before, but that feeling of wanting food security hit me hard. If you're feeling that same pull right now, I'm glad you're here. This video will help you get started without making the same mistakes that I did when I first started. Let's start with breeds, because this is where most people overthink it. The truth is, there's no one perfect chicken breed. It really depends on your space, your goals, and what kind of eggs you want. Our first chickens were Rhode Island Reds. They're a classic, productive brown egg layer, laying about 250 to 300 eggs a year. They were great birds, but they didn't size up well enough for meat. So when I wanted a dual-purpose flock later on, I looked elsewhere. Our next chickens we raised were called white leghorns. They were smaller, flightier, and louder than the Rhode Island Reds. But man, could they lay some eggs. They were egg-laying machines. White eggs almost every day. And because they're smaller birds, they eat less feed too, which means cheaper eggs for you. If you only want a few hens and you're not planning to raise for meat, white leghorns are a great choice. We also tried raising Americanas and Easter eggers. Beautiful birds, colorful eggs, but honestly, they were too noisy, too nervous. They just weren't the right fit for our family or our neighborhood. Once I started focusing more on sustainability, I shifted to breeds that were both productive and calm. My top recommendations for beginners are Barred Rocks and Buff Orpingtons. Both of these breeds lay around 250 eggs a year. They're gentle, quiet, and great with kids. Buff Orpingtons especially, they're like the golden retrievers of the chicken world. If you want a bird that won't bother your neighbors, that's the one. Our best egg-laying hen right now is actually a cross between a Buff Orpington and a Barred Rock rooster. And she's got the personality and productivity of both. So, to recap what we covered so far, if you have limited space, you might want to go with the white leghorns. If you want a family-friendly flock, lean towards the Buff Orpingtons or Barred Rocks. If you want pretty eggs, you could consider Americanas or Easter eggers. And if you want more of a dual-purpose homestead, go for the Buff Orpingtons or the Barred Rocks all the way. Once you've chosen your breed, your next step is going to be the Coop and Run setup you choose. Now, you can absolutely buy a pre-made coop kit from Tractor Supply, but honestly, they're overpriced and often too small. You can build one yourself for a fraction of the cost. Our coop was built entirely from reclaimed wood from an entirely different project. You want to keep your coop raised at least a foot off the ground. This helps with airflow, keeps rodents and moisture out, and the chickens actually love hanging out underneath the coop to dust bathe in the shade. The coop doesn't need to be fancy. It's just where the chickens sleep and lay their eggs. You want to focus on ventilation, not insulation. They can handle the cold far better than a damp coop with no airflow. Each bird needs about a foot of perch space. I made our perches from branches that fell right on our property. Inside, make sure they have clean nesting boxes, and outside, give them room to roam. A good rule of thumb for the run space is give each bird 10 to 15 square feet in the run. You can cram more in, but you'll pay for it in stress, feed costs, and fewer eggs. Just like a garden, spacing matters. More space for the birds equals healthier, happier, and more productive chickens. I started with a small 8-foot by 8-foot run and quickly outgrew it as our flock grew. Now we have a larger run and a network of chicken tunnels that let the flock explore beyond our garden and around our property. They eat bugs, scratch the soil, and fertilize as they go. If you can give them access to a wooded edge or along a tree line, that is ideal. They'll find shade, forage, and entertainment all in one. If you're building your first coop, repurposing an old shed is one of the easiest and cheapest options. Just make sure the run faces the sun, because sunlight is one of the biggest factors in egg production. Feed is where most people either overspend or overcomplicate. For laying hens, you want a 16 to 17% protein layer feed. That's your baseline. Over the years, I've experimented with just about everything, and I've found slightly higher protein feeds perform better for consistent egg laying. You want to keep your feeders off the ground to avoid pests, but here's something most people don't realize. You don't want to free feed your chickens. When you leave food out all day, they will overeat, spill it, and attract rodents. A laying hen needs roughly a quarter pound of feed per day. So if you measure that out, and you can feed twice daily if needed, and you'll save money and keep them in better shape in the long run. Every once in a while, I ferment their feed by just covering it with water and letting it sit for a day or two. And what happens is it expands, adds probiotics, and becomes more bioavailable when they eat it. This also stretches your feed and also improves their health. I always keep fresh water available and check that daily. In winter, you want to make sure that it's not frozen. When they're chicks, you want to add grit so they can digest food properly. When they're laying, you want to make sure that they have calcium. They can get that through oyster shells or crushed eggshells fed back to them, or my favorite is black soldier fly larvae. I've been experimenting raising my own black soldier fly larvae for a while, and it's one of the easiest, most sustainable feed sources that you can have. They're high in protein, calcium, and your birds will absolutely love them. You can also grab black soldier fly larvae treats for your chickens from Grubterra and use my code TinyFarm20 to get 10% off your purchase in their store. Now let's talk eggs. Most breeds start laying around 16 to 20 weeks old, but the timing of when they start depends on when you hatch or buy your chicks. If you get them in the spring, that's March or April, you'll likely have eggs by late summer. If you buy chicks later in the year, they may hit their first molt before laying, and that can delay eggs until the next spring possibly. So you want to plan your flock early, and don't panic if they take a while to start laying. They always lay when they're ready. Lighting and daylight hours are everything. Egg laying slows down in the fall and winter, and that's completely normal. As the days get longer again, they'll pick right back up with laying more eggs. Now for health and safety. The best way to keep your birds healthy is to keep them safe. Predators are relentless. You want to use hardware cloth, not cheap chicken wire. I've had raccoons reach through chicken wire and kill a bird right through the chicken wire fencing. Hardware cloth stops that from happening. You'll want to check your coop for weak spots regularly. A 5-minute inspection is better than losing a bird overnight. Also, you want to manage your flock size. Shoving too many birds in too small of a space leads to pecking and bullying. We once had a hen that kept getting picked on, and the real issue wasn't her, it was overcrowding and too many roosters. Now, I keep about 8 to 10 hens max and no roosters unless I'm hatching chicks. And yes, you don't need a rooster for eggs. That's actually one of the most common misconceptions. Your chickens, your hens, will still lay eggs without a rooster. Raising chickens doesn't have to be complicated. Every morning I check the flock, refill their water, feed them, and toss them a handful of food scraps from the kitchen. They love real food, and it's one more way to reduce waste. We keep a little pail on the counter for scraps all day long, and when that gets full, it gets tossed to the birds. After that, they take care of themselves. If you give them space, sunlight, food, and safety, they'll give you food security right back. A lot of beginners expect perfect egg production year-round, but that's not how nature works. Your hens will lay the most in their first 2 years, then slow down dramatically. You can keep them as pets after that, or like us, process them at around 18 months, when the meat is still tender and you've had the best of their egg laying. Every fall, they'll molt and egg production drops, and that's just part of the cycle. Come January, as the sunlight returns, they'll start laying more eggs again. If you go into chicken keeping with patience and realistic expectations, you'll be amazed at how much they give back. Raising chickens isn't just about eggs, it's about freedom, resilience, and learning to provide for yourself and for your family. I'm working on a book and a course called The Self-Sufficient Chicken, where I'll teach you how to raise and feed chickens year-round without ever stepping foot in a feed store again. If that sounds like something you'd love, join the waitlist down below by signing up for our email newsletter. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our channel if you're new here. I would really appreciate that. And let me know down in the comments what breed you started with. I read every single one. We'll see you in the next video.
There you go.